to Diz and Hers, the show about what's happening in the Disney community from his, hers, and your perspective. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Eric, and this week Disney fans had plenty to react to, from record-breaking cold temperatures in Orlando to the final day of DinoLand U.S.A. We'll also talk about a surprise character debut, insights from the latest Disney's earning call, and the new CEO has been announced. We'll also find out if you're Team Gray or Team Pink when it comes to the Cinderella Castle.
My gosh, Eric, do we have all the news to talk about
All breaking.
today?
Breaking news.
All breaking news, breaking internet, breaking records. So I guess let's start with a record breaker as far as first kind of news story goes. So it is freezing. It is freezing here in Wheeling. It is freezing across the country, and Orlando was no exception. So you're listening to this podcast on Thursday, but looking back to Sunday and Monday of this week, we had record low temperatures in Central Florida. So starting on February 1st, which was Sunday, every single local climate site tracked by the National Weather Service, which is like the gold standard in monitoring the weather, had said that there is a new record set for the month of February. Orlando got down to 24 degrees early Sunday, which was way below the average temperature at this time, and then the all-time record low was 18 degrees, set in 1894. Any idea the last time the temp got this low, like more recently?
Yeah, I don't know about the 1894. I don't know if we were keeping track too much there, but I believe I looked this up because I was really concerned for all our Floridians there. But I mean, literally, Myrtle Beach and I think even like Texas was all hit with like very, very cold weather. But I think in Orlando, it was 25 degrees, they said, December 29, 2010. So we're talking 16 years ago.
Yes, and I mean, your sister in South Carolina, she got a couple inches of snow, right?
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we're all super cold. Like, it's been negative degree temperatures, but there's something about it when it's down in the South that they necessarily don't have the blood for this. Also, they don't necessarily have the road vehicles to kind of handle snow. So it's very interesting to see, but it does look like, and we've been following online on all the forums and so forth, everybody has been sharing their pictures and letting us know what's going on. Did you see that this happened a couple days prior? So late last week, I started seeing it on all the forums. Did you see that Epcot was already laying like the blankets down? You know how when you're scared that you're going to lose your plants and your flowers and so forth, they like kind of treat that.
It actually, if you were just scrolling by, it actually looks like snow.
Yeah.
But I did see that. I mean, like, they're not really made for, this type of temperature. And I did see that the water parks were closing down. Obviously, I don't know anybody that's swimming in this weather. It maybe like Blizzard Beach. It's like it's very
You
fitting
could go
with this.
skiing. It's appropriate
Yeah,
now. Right.
right?
Now, I don't know if we got snow down there, but I mean, it could have very well snowed. But it was one of those things where everybody was absolutely freezing. And I thought this was pretty interesting that on Facebook there was the Disney World tips. It says, never thought I would receive a message on my WDW phone that leave the faucets dripping so the pipes don't freeze. Is that even possible? I can't believe that. That is so a northerner cold environment type thing. I'm sure they're like, what are you even talking about? Pipes freezing?
Unless, I mean, you think about it, like snowbirds and people from,
Sure.
the Midwest, they're probably heading down there to escape the
Mhm.
cold, and maybe they brought it with them. So, I mean, leave those faucets dripping. But my favorite, and I saw this everywhere. It wasn't just one person, but I was this by a Reconstruct that shared the photo
Yeah.
of the icicles under the Universal globe, that it was totally frozen over. And if you've been to Universal recently, there's that like mist that comes out from below the globe that's spinning with the Universal logo. So that is how cold it was. Is that like it literally was frozen over.
Yeah, our buddy By Reconstruct sent a message. He was actually featured in People Magazine, like because of these photos. So he was just featured in People Magazine. So go check that out and give that a like because literally his photos have been amazing in general. But seeing all these frozen items, and he must have been hanging out over in the Universal area because I think he had one of the hotels. I think there was an elephant that was frozen. Some at Burke was featured. But yeah, the globe is the best. But there was also, I mean, not everybody was super happy about this. I mean, it's fun to see, but did you see that Epic Universe, they've had their fair share of complaints that when it rains, the attractions go down. But it turns
Mhm.
out rain is not the only thing that takes them down. When it was extremely cold, the Curse of the Werewolf, the Mario Kart, I don't know why Bowser's Challenge was
What?
down. It must have just
Why is
been,
Mario Kart
yeah,
down?
I don't know. But either way, I got a screenshot here from everything you need to know on Twitter. Basically had all the attractions that were down because of the freezing temperatures. So hopefully they get out of this okay. And those that decided to venture into the Epic Universe that day had other things to do. Maybe this shows to go in there, maybe a dragon to warm them up with some fire.
I mean, yeah, that's actually surprising. I've never thought of the cold impacting Epic. That's kind of wild. So, but I mean, if you're going to Florida in January or February, there you have to assume some kind of risk of, it could be warm, it could be freezing. Like our first trip to Florida in December, I mean, we packed shorts and tank tops and, t-shirts, and we got down there and it was, 35 degrees in December. So, I mean, you kind of like run the risk, but this is significantly below the norm, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what I did is I was wondering, normally I'm not the one booking the vacations. Truthfully told, I would be happy to go in January, February. Their cold is not necessarily the cold that you get kind of here in West Virginia. So I'm happy for it, but I wanted to see like, all right, what is the average? How much was this normally? So I went to holidayweather.com and they had a really nice, wonderful reports for Orlando and any city for that matter, but it gave you kind of the averages. And I was kind of surprised to see that the average low in January is normally 48 degrees. And that's January and February are both about 48 degrees with their average
I'd
high
take
of,
48 right now.
well, I think they would take it as well. But I mean, for the most part, that's still well, above freezing. So you don't have to worry about the globe, universal freezing. So I think this was like you said, it was record setting. And I was wondering, more so, what is the lowest in Walt Disney World that people remember? Obviously, 2010 was super cold, and obviously 1898 or whatever it was the coldest.
1894.
So I went on there and I just was wondering to check. So I actually found an old classic from disboards.com. So the Diz has an
This is
old
so
Diz board,
great.
found it from 2003. So I'm like, all right, so what was covered because 2010 didn't exist yet. So what was there? And there was a user, Virgo 10 posted the coldest and hottest it's ever been in Walt Disney World. And to quote, this was June 2003. I've been there in the heat of August and the chill of December. The hottest I've been was May 2002. The air temp was 97. Dew point was 81. The coldest was December of 99. I got up one morning and it was 39 with a wind chill of 30. Believe it or not, I saw people in shorts and tank tops. So
They were just bad at packing like we were.
right. That is when Disney, the merchandise team starts salivating. They put the little, the carts go out front and they have those $80 hoodies in which we've all been suckers and end up buying because like you're freezing. We've all done that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We
what
got
it
like
was,
3 from Disneyland in October. Whoops.
right. It was October. I got burnt one day and then I bought a $80 hoodie the next. So the funniest thing, so I was going through, it's always kind of fun to look at some of these old replies and so forth, but it was Disney Cincy said in January, me and my friends went to MK and it was 28 degrees. Never go on the Speedway when it's cold. It's the most freezing ride ever when it's cold. And that just had me thinking of like, Lauren, I mean, I could see the Speedway being cold and not wanting to do that in whether it be rain, snow, any temperature. But like, what other rides do you think would be like absolutely horrible to go on when it's cold outside. Pending obviously no water rides. We're not talking Cali River
I know, I
Rapids.
like, first thing is, like, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, I'm thinking, like, little shards of ice, like, coming up and hitting you in the face. Man, I think Tron would probably be pretty bad. Like, anything that you're going at a high speed.
I could see Everest just being miserable because
What
you're
about
going so
Test
fast.
Track? Aren't you going, like, 60 miles per hour?
Yeah, but you're going super fast, but you're only out there for a little piece of time. To me, I'm thinking Everest is certainly one where you're outside the entire time. There's only that one little pocket where you're inside, and I don't know if there would be enough heat. For Tron, I'm like, well, you're inside. It's real short. You could probably get through that. But I could definitely see Speedway because you're going, I wouldn't say you're going fast, but you're outside and for a while.
It's a long ride.
Yeah, and it's a little shorter now that they, replaced the track a little bit. But I would love to hear from everybody else. What's the coldest you've ever been at the parks, and what ride did you find yourself stuck on, or doing it and completely regretting your decision there? Well, let us know. Write to us, or put it in the comments. Let us know. But yeah, it's definitely cold, and hopefully it's heating up by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's move on to something else that is cold. I'm looking at this comment here. It says the irony that dinosaur is counting down to extinction today in what feels like the actual ice age. For Orlando, let's talk about the last day of Dinosaur and DinoLand USA. Yeah, so permanently closed February 1st. We're making room for the tropical Americas, which is really exciting. But if you're not familiar, Dino Land was one of the original lands in the park when it opened back in 1998. And we've been losing little bits of DinoLand USA for what, probably about the last year?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, and then, I think the Boneyard and a Dinosaur were the last to go, right?
Yeah, Primeval Whirl was the first to go.
Yeah,
That was
Primeval Well, sorry.
Primeval Whirl was the first to go, and that was well before they even made the announcement. I think there was something going on where they demoed that, but
It
then
was dangerous. I think
yeah,
people, like.
there was issues always. But like, yeah, the Triceratops spin and all the Chester and Hester was kind of taken down, but this was the last portion of Dino Land that was open. So I think Restaurantosaurus is now down, the Dino Institute shop, and the lounge, and of course Dinosaur itself is no longer. And it was all over social, for at least my Twitter, my Facebook. It was basically
Yeah,
Dinosaur or
same.
nothing else. To share some of the thoughts in general, we weren't down there to witness it, but it did seem to be a spectacle. One of my favorite followers on Twitter is the Dr. Grant Seeker. I don't know who it is, but it is the character per se. It's not necessarily the real actor, but it's someone that's always been very pro dinosaur. But it said 3 days left to Dino Institute employment. This is the final week. I'm going to post as much dinosaur countdown to extinction content as humanly possible, and necessary. So I wonder what's going to happen there to that Twitter account if he'll get new employment. But we did see Bright Sun Films. We watched a ton of his stuff, and he was down there to say goodbye to Dinosaur one last time. And did you see the day of, Lauren? Kind of not necessarily the fanfare, but that they had to do some extra. I guess it was a little bit more busy than the normal typical day.
No, what was going on?
Well, the entire dinosaur queue was basically extended, and I don't know if you've ever been in the extended queue or seen it, but it basically had a double switchback. They basically could hold the maximum number of guests. The current wait at the very opening, I think, was 50 minutes. And I was kind of tracking this throughout the day, just grabbing screenshots. So Drew, the intern on X, shared some pictures. Dinosaur has never been this crazy. The extended queue, which is there's like a pathway that had a bunch of dinosaur like statues. I don't even know if you've ever witnessed it because I don't think we've ever walked down that. It's kind of off the beaten path, but they had that, and there's just people lined up back and forth going to kind of pay tribute to the wonderful ride of Dinosaur, whether you love it or not. But then there was also captured here by Theme Park Life, grabbed a whole bunch of people dressed up as Dr. Seekers with their little puppets, their dinosaur puppets, and got a picture in front of the attraction, which I thought was great, and that was shared on Facebook. And then, of course, people started sharing the wait time and 265-minute wait by the end of the day. This screenshot was taken towards the end of the day. And yeah, everybody was getting in, and it was a ridiculous 5-hour wait for the last day. And granted, this is a ride that takes about 2,400 people per hour. And it was, I mean, everybody was trying to get in. But the funny thing is, Disney waits no time whatsoever. As soon as it was closed, you go to the Disney World map and it is wiped off the face of the earth. It is now trees on the app. DinoLand no longer exists. It just looks like a chunk of the park is gone.
I mean, they could at least put like coming soon or something like that.
No, just a bunch of trees now. It is completely extinct. But the fun thing is, our friend at Park Lore said, "Hey, if you miss the overhead view, you can always head over to the Play Disney Parks app because they are always behind in the actual updating, so you can still get your dino there." So I love that. And Park Lore's friend, he's been on the Epic Universal podcast, so go check out his stuff. That was a funny comment there. But yeah, Dino is gone. I didn't put this in our show notes. This is kind of breaking because we reported this the day of the reporting. The next day actually is really funny that all the cast members were able to get one final ride in, and they actually invited in the actor who played Dr. Grant Seeker. So there was all types of photos online of him posing with cast members. So I thought that was a nice little paying tribute. And Dinosaur got the love till the very end, and it's just a never-ending cycle of how dare you take away the things that we love, but we kind of didn't really appreciate until the final days. So countdown on to Rock and Roller Coaster. That will happen probably later this month, and we'll report on the exact same scenario.
Yes, 100%. But you never know. Like things with Disney, they have a way of cropping back up, which kind of takes us to our next story, which is an extremely rare character sighting, one that has Jim Hill extremely excited. So, Humphrey the Bear is making his first Disney Parks character appearance at the Storytellers Cafe at Disneyland. And this is happening on February 6th. And Humphrey the Bear, if you're not familiar, that's Jim Hill's, favorite character. We had talked about Humphrey. I learned all about him back on I Want That Too, episode 5. So oldie but a goodie. That one was about we had just stayed over at the what's it called? The campgrounds.
Yeah, Fort Wilderness. We stayed in one
Fort
of the cabins.
Wilderness, and yeah, and we were talking about the Wilderness Lodge, and that's how we started talking about Humphrey the Bear. So this episode is about Smokey Bear and Bambi. But anywho, going back to Humphrey, Humphrey the Bear will appear during Donald's Tales of Adventure dinner buffet, making his first ever appearance as a character in a Disney park in general, not even at Walt Disney World. The snack-loving grizzly hails from Brownstone National Park and starred in multiple Disney animated shorts, including 2 as a headlining character. So Humphrey, if you're not familiar, is best known for his mischievous run-ins with Goofy and Donald Duck, where his over-the-top antics made him a fan favorite. The character previously inspired Humphrey's service and supplies over at Disney's California Adventure, but had never appeared in person until right now. So advanced dining is available. I'm assuming, Eric, that this is coming out as a part of DCA's 25th anniversary. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that is the primary reason it is. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with the 25th anniversary, and I can't say I've paid too much attention. A lot of this was announced on Disney Park blog. I saw Humphrey. I immediately thought of the episode where you and Jim talked about that, and I said we have to talk about that. But it's funny because it is a very obscure character, and it kind of had us thinking of like what other rare characters there are. And you actually sent this over to me, I think from Dr. Disney on Facebook, that there was another rare character, and there was something going on with the Disneyland After Dark Sweethearts, which I am not super familiar with. What do you know? Like, what is that? And then we could share with this odd character that I've never thought of being in the park at all.
Yeah, so if you listen to I Want That Too at all, you would have heard me complaining about how Disney World, our East Coast park, does not really get very much for Valentine's except for the merch. And Jim told me exactly why that is. But over on the other coast at Disneyland, there are Disney After Dark Sweetheart Nights. And they are more because it's a regional park. And so it's something special that you and your significant other or partner can experience. So, going back to Dr. Disney, he shared that Charlotte LaBeouf, I hope I said that right, she also made her meet and greet debut. And if you're not familiar, maybe Princess Charlotte from the Princess and the Frog, maybe that would ring a bell. But she's beautiful, but she's the adult version. And she was meeting in New Orleans Square.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. But it looked like there was a whole bunch of people that were meeting at this Sweetheart Night. So you had Mickey and Minnie, makes sense. Winnie the Pooh, Tigger and Eeyore, Maribel, Louisa, and Isabella, which I mean that seems new. I know we can meet Maribel at Walt Disney World where
And she walks around
yeah,
Disneyland, the parks.
yeah, but there was some also
I don't
wins.
ever remember seeing,
Yeah,
Luisa or Isabella, like, as meet and greets, so they're
right.
new.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, like there are a lot more, it seems to be like walk around characters at these after hours events and or in Disneyland. They seem to have a more flexible schedule. In Walt Disney World, a lot of times the rare characters kind of come out during like maybe some of the DVC parties or maybe some of the especially the Halloween and Christmas parties. You have those, but those are kind of the same characters each year with maybe one or two that's obscure. But these ones are slightly more obscure, like Milo and from like Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
That I was gonna ask you about that. Like, is that a big enough movie to that, like, people would want to go to that meet and greet?
I mean, I think it's a rare character, and I think that sometimes is part of it. Is that like, hey, I've never met this, and I know when we would go around and we bought that Disney A to Z character book, and we tried to get everybody that was in that character book to sign it, and some of those like Milo's in there, and you're like, when am I going to meet this character? That one. So, but yeah, there was definitely some interesting characters out there. So of course we head over to Reddit to find out what's the rarest character sightings you've ever had. So this was just on a classic Walt Disney World, and it was a couple years ago. But I was interested to see what are some of the most rare characters that anyone's ever seen. So the first one that I found was Roush Mustang. Basically said they met Bolt. Are you even familiar with who Bolt is?
Yes, I know who Bolt is. It's a little white dog with the pointy
Yeah,
ears.
there you go. I've never. I mean, it is a very
And
obscure.
wasn't Bolt actually in, like wasn't he, like, the dog in, like, Toy Story 1? I feel like Jim had a story about that.
I don't know that one. That we'll have to go back to the archives and ask Jim now. But it was Bolt is not one that I've seen around and is obscure. Then we also had somebody Game of Curls. I think it said we saw Bernard and Bianca from the Rescuers. So I think that's a super
That
interesting
is,
meet.
like, a super obscure.
Yeah. And then DX 927 said they saw Norway Goofy in the Penguins from Mary Poppins 30 plus years ago. So I saw a couple people on this thread. So that was a really fun thread to look at. There are some obscure characters that that at one point in time was really difficult to meet, like the Robin Hood or Little John. But
I was gonna
Disney,
ask you, like, was that your favorite rare character interaction?
yeah, well, there was a
Robin
period of
Hood?
time. Yeah, there was a period of time a couple years ago that Magic Kingdom was doing these meet and greets in the front of the park at like in Main Street at the like the gazebo area where it would, and they would randomly have characters come out, but it was kind of a set schedule that once the fans kind of knew that it was like Tuesday is when Robin Hood and Little John's coming out, and then they had the characters from Ratatouille come out on Wednesdays, and it was kind of cycled, so I knew Robin Hood was going to be there. But yeah, that was my favorite. But we've met some interesting ones at the Disney Vacation Club parties. What was your
That's what
most
I was
rare
gonna say.
characters?
Okay, I don't remember the character's name, so you might have to help me out if you even know. But do you remember the giant, like, grasshopper from A Bug's Life
Yeah, yeah.
meeting at the DVC Moonlight Madness party? That was like kind of crazy to see. And then I don't know if it was a DVC party or if it was just like in after hours. But do you remember when we met Sebastian?
I do remember Sebastian. That was one of the most rare. I did not see Sebastian on this list of different characters, but certainly I've never seen Sebastian anywhere else. But we met Darkwing Duck, Jiminy Cricket, Sebastian, Launchpad. I thought those were all kind of unique and rare at one point in time. But I've never seen Sebastian anywhere else, and he was an interesting character. So that leads us to the wonderful question of who is the most rare character that you've ever met. We would love to hear obscure, rare characters. Doesn't matter what time frame. We want to know. I definitely saw some Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers on the list before, and those qualify as well. So let us know in the comments or give us a shout on social media with your rare character. Speaking of characters in the parks, it looks like we are actually losing Disney's main character a little bit early. So more of that after this break.
So last week, if you listened to Diz and Hers, we spent the first half of the show discussing Bob Iger and his potential replacement because at the time there were rumblings that he was not going to stay until his contract ended and that a new CEO was going to be named soon. Well, yesterday we had our Disney earnings call. And I mean, as far as earning calls go, I think that there were a lot of good things that happened. And then just a few hours ago, we've got the announcement that we do have a new head cheese at the Mouse House. So, Eric, do we want to start off with the earnings call? Do you have any highlights from that? And then we'll talk about what we know so far with the new CEO being named.
Well, yeah. So the fun thing is, as we prepped this show, I was ready to just talk about the earnings call and saying, hey, it was a perfect time to kind of give Josh a ton of kudos because the pretty much everything he was handling was doing very well. So it seemed like Disney posted a net profit of $2.48 billion in the quarter. It is slightly down year over year, but the experience division delivered a record $10 billion in quarterly revenue. So experiences, that's Josh thing. So yeah, and U.S. parks, including Walt Disney World, saw an income rise of 8% with attendance up, per capita guest spending increasing. So Josh looks really good there. And then the cruise operations also performed strongly. So it was just one of those things where like, all right, let's name him right now. And that's kind of what we prepped for. And then I sent this email off to you and we're going to get ready to record. And a couple hours ago, it is announced Josh D'Amaro is the next CEO. And Dana Waldman is actually a new role as well. So it's kind of, it's interesting. We mentioned it briefly that like, hey, a couple promotions here. And it seemed like that is kind of the case, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so he was leaving the company as, in good shape. I'm hoping that Josh here in his new role, we're gonna break the cycle. I had a couple mixed feelings whenever I heard the news when Bob Iger left the first time, and we were entered into the Chapek era, and whatever happened with Bob Chapek happened. But that wasn't the first time that Disney has struggled with the transition of power, right?
I think it's almost every single time it seems like it's happened. I mean, I can't speak prior to like Ron Miller. That is kind of when I started picking up, and that's kind of one of my fascinations is kind of that Michael Eisner era where Ron Miller was kind of ousted, and then Michael Eisner and Frank Wells came in as a tag team, and they kind of let the world on fire and did pretty much everything that I kind of love about the Disney experience now. But then poor Michael Eisner, and I say poor because I remember him and his greatness. I'm sure if we talked to someone like Jim or somebody else that was covering at the time, we're like, yep, it was time to go. But he kind of got ousted with the Save Disney, and that's how Iger came into play. And we thought things were going well and good until Iger stepped down and Chapek came around, and then Iger came back, which is interesting. So it does not seem like it's been great. And but so this might actually be the cleanest handoff per se. What? But you had some
I mean, I
interesting
think it's
points.
maybe a little too early to tell. But so I think that initially, Bob Iger's contract was going through the end of this year. And though Josh DeMar will take the seat as the CEO, I believe March 18th. Bob Iger is still planning to stick around in a senior advisor capacity through the end of the year. So that is also a really good sign because do you remember how quickly it was like Bob Iger is retiring and he already left and here's your new CEO. Good luck.
Yeah, and this is what I thought was interesting when we were just kind of talking a little bit ago about this scenario. You said, well, I wonder what he knows. Because what happened when he left last time?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was eerily, like, a week or 2 before, like, the whole world shut down with the COVID, pandemic, but honestly, I mean, that my stomach kinda sunk first. I'm like, "What's he know that we don't know?" But the other side of the coin is that he's not going far. It's not like he's leaving the country. He's still gonna be there as a senior advisor through the end of the year. He's leaving the company better off than it's been in quite some time. I mean, they really have broken a lot of records in this last earnings call. There's still a little bit of concern from the market. I think their stock was down maybe like 3% just because of, economic times and a CEO transition, like, things that would make the market a little bit squeamish. But knowing that he's going to be around makes me, feel a little bit better about that. And right before we hopped on here, the comp for our new executives was disclosed. I know you all had a lot of thoughts about Bob Iger's recent comp being shared. I think it was like over 45 million. So Josh is coming in with a comp package valued at 38 million. But his base salary is only 2.5. But the other big thing with this is, we talked about Dana in the last show, and we know what her specialty is, which is really entertainment. So she is also being elevated. Her new role is going to be president and chief creative officer. So she's going to be in charge of Disney's film, TV, streaming, and marketing content from what I read, and her comp is substantial. It is notably smaller, but her base is actually about $1 million more than Josh's, and he got like a $9 million one-time lump sum, and she got five. So her her compensation is still substantial. I think that was Disney's little kiss and the elevating her. So do you think this is gonna be a Eisner and Frank Wells kind of,
Well,
tag team, Walton Roy, or yeah, like
Well,
what do
the
you
funny
think?
thing is that seemed those were, and we kind of discussed a little bit, that was very much like a financial kind of person backing and a creative. And this is a little bit different with Josh not necessarily being a CFO. And it's been funny because the creative individual has always kind of been the face. So like Josh has been the face, but it sounds to me like the Hollywood creative type is actually Dana. So it is a slight difference. I don't know if it's a direct comparison, but I kind of like that idea, and I'm sure Jim and Len are going to talk a lot about this on the upcoming Disney Dish. Jim had some really fascinating information. He just texted me back and forth some of his thoughts, and I thought that was something that let him discuss, and I thought it was really funny how he put some of this. So I would say, yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what happens here. It's nice to have it finally like Bob is basically said, all right, who it is. It's no more a guessing game. So I think that is pretty interesting, and I think we'll keep an eye on it. But one thing I did want to bring up, because we pre-gamed this prior to the announcement, and only here you're going to find people getting breaking news from their LinkedIn follows. And this is give Lauren credit here. So I just want you to summarize. So who do you follow on LinkedIn, or who you connected with, and what did our friends say that kind of piqued your interest to kind of give you a clue that Josh might be a good candidate here?
Yeah, so if you're on LinkedIn, Matt, how would you say his last name?
Oymet? Umet?
I
Yeah.
met Matt just cropped up on my LinkedIn one day, and he is a former president at Disneyland and Disneyland or Disney Cruise Line, as well as president at the Walt Disney Company. And since his retired, his last gig, he was the CEO and chairman of Cedar Fair, like Cedar Point. So he's worked closely with Josh, knows him personally for years, and he talks a little bit about the fascination around this specific elevation in titles. And like, there are major companies, and we really don't know any of the CEOs. But here are some thoughts with Josh tomorrow. He says here that he worked with Josh 20 years ago and watched his career advance from a distance. And then he talks about how running theme parks and resorts and cruise lines, it's a really complex business, and it is tangible and predictable. But like that still is there's a lot of moving parts with that type of business. So he goes on and talks a little bit about the studio side of the business and how that's a totally different arena, because you have to have the business savvy that you do with the parks, but you also have to have the relationships in Hollywood. So at the end, he's asking, should Josh be the next CEO? And he feels like, with his deep understanding of the parks and, being with the company for so long and giving him the grace to focus his attention on like other lines of the business too, and like building those relationships, that he will be just fine. And that, he thinks that one of Josh's greatest strengths is that, he really aligns himself with super talented people and third party like partners. So um I think Matt gave his seal of approval there. And Eric, was it you that was telling me about somebody's interaction with Josh, and like he's like the nicest guy, and he was talking about like if you ever see anybody like in the office, like no matter what, like you always stop and say hello. Was that you telling me that?
I've read it multiple times, and there were a couple podcast hosts and people that, and truth be told, today is post your picture with Josh tomorrow day, because
Oh,
he literally must have been has been in the parks enough that almost every influencer or vlogger or podcaster has posted a picture on one of the platforms with Josh. I feel kind of slighted that I just haven't been in the park with him. We just from a distance, so I've never stopped him. But I think Gogo, kid's grandma, she's I think pointed out like, hey, look over there before. But yeah, it's always heard good things. I think people in the company have heard good things, but at the end of the day, he necessarily, he's going to be making a lot of tough decisions, and probably is not going to be in such a favorable light, because he's going to make some people angry, just because that's the role you take. So it'll be interesting. Happy to see it all kind of come to end. And truth be told, we haven't this is just the first of getting the information, what you guys are saying online. I'll be interested to grab screenshots and share what everybody is saying now. Since we're only an hour removed, let's let the world kind of wake up to it, and we'll see what everyone is thinking about this. But one of
Yeah,
the
but if
yeah.
you if you have not been in the theme park to get a picture with Josh tomorrow, one thing you probably have got your picture with is the castle. And so I think that takes us on to our final story for today. And did you see that the castle is being repainted and it is underway?
Yeah, yeah. This was the other big thing. There was a whole bunch of pictures, and you have to kind of squint to see at the time of posting that you're like, all right, what are they painting? I haven't seen it yet, but it is obviously they're going back to the light gray. They announced that they were going to paint, so it is now happening. So I think those that are going down over the next couple months are probably going to be upset that there might be some scaffolding, but right now we're seeing it all happen. So in general, Lauren, what do you think of the paint color? Are you pro? The question is, are we gray or pink in this scenario?
Yeah, we team gray or team pink? Well, I feel like you know the answer. But it will be team gray, even though I am a paint girly through and through. Like, this is Cinderella's castle. This is not Sleeping Beauty. And so my thought is Team Gray all along. But, I've talked about doing the Merge podcast, and I thought that it was really, really strange that, like, I think it was last year was the first time I saw that the castles that they're selling in the theme parks was pink. And you know the one I'm talking about, like it's like $129 or $199, and it comes with, Mickey and Minnie, and it plays the fireworks sounds. And it had me in a panic that, like, we weren't going to get the gray and blue castle back. How about you, though? You team gray or
Oh,
team
I'm
pink?
such a traditionalist. I mean, my favorite park is Walt Disney World of 1971. So, like, please make it as close to that original as possible. So yes, I am certainly Team Gray. Didn't like the pink, never really did. I love the pink over in California. I think that is perfect for Sleeping Beauty, but Cinderella needs to be gray, and I don't care what anybody says about that. But what I did do was I went online. I was trying to find the most recent poll from our types of people, and there's no better people than the touringplans.com forum. So I went on touringplans.com. Now, this is really funny because I was digging, and it's from August of 2020 when it just happened. So the poll was, what do you think of new Cinderella castle paint color? So this is right when it turned pink, and the answers that you could supply was, it's fabulous, it's meh, put it back the way and get off my lawn, or they changed the color, question mark. Lauren, who do you think won this poll?
I mean, I'm hoping, I'm hoping gray, but what did the poll say?
Well, the poll meh was 37%, and then put it back the way it was 35. So if you would say that's overwhelmingly like, nah, we didn't like it. 1% said they didn't know about the color change, and then only 27 said it's fabulous. So it'd be interesting now. So everybody that kind of was in that poll, about 70% got their way because it came back. But I was, as you do, you kind of look at the actual comments and see what it is. And Mini 27 Mouse said this in November of 21. Everyone kept telling me I would like it better in person. I didn't. This poorly thought out paint job makes the castle look like it's part of a cheap, cheesy Saturday morning cartoon in the 1970s. So she got her way because we're back, or we're making our way back. And then we also had Jenna Jamelia. In a few years, it'll be something else. So she says, but she was right. In a few years, we did get something else. So I also headed right over to Reddit real quick to see if there was anybody there. And this one, Dr. Disco said, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I much prefer the current colors of this castle. The mostly gray color scheme has always seemed boring to me compared to other castles. And then there was a couple of people that seemed to agree, but my favorite comment was, feels bad too. Indeed, unpopular. So that is an unpopular decision. I think most of us liked it the original way, at least from all these fan communities and the people commenting. So that is
But I
interesting.
have to ask though, like, I don't ever really remember a lot of broad swings with the castle as a whole. Like we've been there and it's been worked on, and they've, had different accents and metallics. The boldest decision was probably like the birthday cake
Oh yeah.
castle. Was
I
that for
mean,
the
you don't get more bold than that, or when Stitch threw toilet paper all over it.
Yeah, and then I know some people loved when it was, lit up as Frozen for Christmas for a couple
Me,
years, with all of the lights. I personally love that. Other people did not like it, but, like, it's just one of those things that don't mess with a good thing, and I will blame Bob Chapek for that, as a part of the 50th. I mean, you say what you will about Bob Chapek, but I felt like I know that there was, like, a global pandemic and the whole world was shut down, but I still stand with the only good thing that really came out of the 50th was the lights on Spaceship Earth,
you
and it
got it.
wasn't even at the Magic Kingdom.
Right. You got it. You got it. Well, I think the funny thing is, so this was announced on August 31st on the Disney Parks blog. So I wanted to go there, and originally this is when they announced that they were going to repaint it. So like we should have saw a ton of praise. And I went to the blog, and with blogs you normally have this thing called comments, and guess what? There is no comments because Disney doesn't have comments on their blog. So this is what I got to say, Disney, you're listening, Josh, Dana, somebody, quit being cowards. Open up the comment sections on your blogs so we can all eat popcorn in peace and read and see what the real people are saying. So in lasting effect there, open up the blog section, Disney. You've heard it.
You heard it here, folks. But tell us what are you? Are you team gray or team pink? Curious to hear from everybody. But on that note, I think that does it for this week's episode of Diz and Hers. For more, make sure that you check us out over at dizandhers.com. You'll find articles, episodes, and updates. We also just launched our social media platforms. We have Instagram now, so you can follow us over there, right, Eric?
Yeah, pretty much Instagram, Facebook, any of those. We're going to start loading up the content there. And as you always love to say, if Disney is your vibe, please subscribe. But
Yeah.
what I like to say is watch what you post online because you might end up in next week's episode. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you next week.